Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media, where years ago in the first administration, we were decoding Trump tweets. Now in his second term, or the first one, and we're just not sure which term we're on really, where we are decoding laws and orders of Donald Trump. And today we're looking at the intelligence community. Wow, Thomas, I know I heard you say all these things years ago, and now to see it in an executive order, it makes me just want to go meow.
Meow. Well, okay, little kitty. This is what we do is we just curl up here at the fire and look out the window and watch what's going by, because so many people don't notice this stuff as it goes by. Okay, let's look at the one called Organization of the National Security Council and Subcommittees. Now, I started saying something about that a minute ago, and I'm going to get started on this one in just a second. This is a memorandum. It's not even an executive order. Now, just so you're clear, one of the ones that he signed abnegated all of Biden's executive orders. So, in effect, Biden was never really the executive. He had veto power, and he screwed that up, and he could sign things into law, which the other houses and the Congress and the Senate sent to him. But the reality is that everything he ever did has been undone. Because why? I was going to go through those and point out things like he had two executive orders creating DEI. DEI is unconstitutional. It's discrimination. It's against the law. So a lot of the things, the first thing Trump did was abnegate those, rescind them. And he did it with one signature. And that's why they're saying with one signature, he undoes everything Biden did. Remember, that's correct. And also remember what Betsy's been telling us from the beginning. Nothing Biden did ever was in the right place at the right time or followed tradition or, in fact, even made it look like he was in power. And I think everyone knew that that wasn't Biden in the end. That was a lookalike who had gone demented on them. And so, that was gone. But what also isn't mentioned here is that one of the ones that he abnegated of Biden is Biden's abnegating everything that Trump did in executive orders. And remember, executive orders go into the National Registry. And so those are supposed to be kind of like the directives that you follow, but from one administration to the other, they may or may not. So anyway, Trump, all the ones that he did before, they're all back into place. So on day one, when he wrote the one that abnegates Biden, abnegating him, put back in place all of his. And remember, he did not rescind the Obama executive orders that allowed him to call martial law anytime he wants, because that's what Biden had done. And Obama had done, and it was Biden's prerogative if he wanted to. The coronal mass ejection in May of 2024 could have put us into martial law. The COVID pandemic could have put us into law. But anyway, a few other incidentals, because I don't know if I'm going to come back to this. I've said that it all comes down to the person who made the report to Obama each day from the intelligence community, which were 17 intelligence communities all working independently in different silos, not even talking to each other, and not even having a committee meeting where they did talk to one another. It all boiled down to Homeland Security was in charge of everything. DOD, FBI, CIA, everything. And then that came down to, in Homeland Security, the person who made the report each day upon the national security of America to the president. And that's the reason Obama never knew anything and Biden never knew anything, is because it was being reported by the what do they call it? The weapons of mass destruction. The person who was in charge of giving him reports on weapons of mass destruction. Now, that's all been thrown away. That usually, when I was in the NSA, went through the National Security Agency and the National Security Advisor, NSA. And it was literally in the ready room off of the Oval Office, and at all times, 24/7, either the president, the vice president, or the director of national security, who's called the National Security Advisor, and or his designee sat in that room receiving information. It was where now Obama called it the U.S. Digital Service. In other words, all of the digitized technical information we have access to comes to that room. In Star Trek, they call it the ready room. So my job was to put on that desk within X amount of time any top secret message encoded and secured through a microwave transmission from where I was at spying in Russia back to the president. So I knew this route very well. Okay, well, then they added the Director of National Intelligence, then they added the Defense Intelligence Agency, then they added the Cyber Intelligence Agency, then they added everything, and then the Joint Chiefs of Staff representative, who was in charge of all the different military branches in one man, sat on that committee, and he had the biggest vote of all if the president wasn't there. And they pushed the red button. But the red button is overridden if they push it, and the president carrying the football. And I knew all about the football because I was a cryptographer, and that's what I did. And so I know that literally a private first class is carrying the football. The president doesn't even know how to turn it on, and carries one of the two keys. So the point is that in the ready room is where it used to be that the president and the president alone made decisions, not the Department of Defense on its own, the CIA on its own, the FBI on its own, and everything else. And now when they added the Homeland Security, that meant fait accompli. That meant whoever he appointed to that job, who was an idiot, any president appointing whoever was in charge of Homeland Security, was in charge of everything and filtered everything down and only told the president what he felt the president needed to know. So all black ops, all the DOD, real undercover stuff, all the CIA stuff, never even come before the president's eyes so that he would have plausible deniability. That's the way it was set up. And that's why they would make up the lies the whole time Trump was in office, that the president does not tell the DOJ what to do, the Department of Defense, Department of Justice. Well, that's insane. Or the Attorney General. Now, what this does, this one is called Organization of the National Security Council and Subcommittees. Now it comes down to one thing, and I'm just going to not read it like most people would do. I'm in charge, and if you don't do what I say, you're fired. That's what's happened. And now you don't even get a vote to get onto the National Security Council. So the Joint Chiefs of Staff does not have a vote on the National Security Council.
The CIA.
Or the CIA, or the FBI, or any of the agencies, the 17 agencies. No, he put on exactly who should be put on there and restricted the others.
Because if he was listening to us back in the day, he was getting better intel from two old retired school teachers sitting in their lounges in their pajamas than he was getting from 17 intelligence agencies. And that's not because we're so smart. It's because the 17 intelligence agencies are nothing but British fronts.
Trust sessions. Oh, and remember, General Flynn was going to save the day because he had been on the National Security Council. He was kicked off by Obama. I think he was the DNI. And so the point is that Clapper and all those people, and what was the head of the CIA who was O'Brien and all the, and Comey. Those people don't even get a vote to put something on the agenda now. They have to send it through a committee in writing that goes up through the secretaries that gets to the president, whether he will even consider what they have to say.
Well, that's got to be putting the British Pilgrim Society in quite the panic, because now Five Eyes is no longer there to surveil and spy.
You see, in the British never knew who was on your committee, secret committee, or who's on the corporation. But what they did know is that every person there was out for themselves on their own personal greed, and they didn't matter how many people they killed. That's all that mattered. As long as you were one of those people, you're on the inside like Peter Strzok or a Bruce Orr. Because now, according to this, as we told you with the SES, those people don't get to determine who gets paid in the SES, who gets hired, how they get hired, how they get fired. That's all gone. There's one leader now, and only cabinet office officials can sit on what he now calls, and it might as well be called the Privy Council, because this is a law. It's been around, but nobody's used it, called the Principals Council.
Okay. So Homeland Security has been downgraded. Okay. And I was greatly relieved then, because then that explained to me why Kristi Noem is over there at Homeland Security. When that happened, I went, oh my gosh, you're going to put that airhead over there for Homeland Security? Oh, but now I see. Kristi has been Nikki Haley'd. She has been removed from her governorship, right, and to go into this new cabinet position. Is it cabinet, a position? Yeah. But it's going to be wind up to be nothing, really. Nothing. And so then now she's out of the picture. You see, you have to be very careful when you accept assignments from Trump. You need to ask yourself, and am I being moved up or out?
Homeland Security Committee is now basically not even invited to the National Security Committee unless they are specifically invited, and then only one of them gets to vote, and the others have nothing to say and may not be invited. And this Principals Council is like the inner council of the Privy Council. There's the super secret Privy Council, and that's what the Principals Council is going to be. That is not Doge. Looking at the Doge reference and what's going to happen with the Department for efficiency is only for 18 months. And it's going to put everything into place. You want to know why? Because it's going to go back to the way it's actually been written into law. It's falling all back to the law. So right now, you can't give all these contractors that sit on the previous National Security Committee top secret access to things that the president doesn't know exist. That's what was going on before. That's why General Flynn got out. And he also then stood up to Obama with his policy on Syria because, hello, we created that problem. And a lot of those fighters were ours and mercenaries. And so what's going to happen now, I said, okay, the whole thing will come down to this. The entire thing. I have this on tape. Who he appoints as the Director of National Security and how that is designed. And if I designed it myself, it would be exactly like the genius who wrote this. Because the Joint Chiefs...
And when you say this, you're pointing to the executive order that you're discussing.
Correct. The one that basically redesigns the National Security Council and who's on it, who gets invited, who doesn't, what they have to go through to even get Trump's attention. So unless you go through his new channel, basically this is a coup d'etat on the deep state. As a matter of fact, in the listing of this, it says for SES, Trump's power to fire the deep state, SES. People are now actually, now they act like they knew what the SES was before. We've been screaming for years that until you get rid of them, you can't do anything in D.C. Well, they're gone. Because the one on SES we just talked about in the previous Substack talk. And now this one, this is National Security Council. There's going to be nobody listening on his telephone calls in the future to use it against him to try to impeach him. Mark my words. And everyone who isn't a male or a female can now be fired from the military, can't they? Because of his redefining of what always has existed, the biological reality of male and female, period. No transgenders in the military, no transgenders, no money for having people change their genders, okay? All of that.
Let's go back to the
This is just the 26th that he did, but people don't know that he abnegated 70. So this one is so great because I've never seen anyone in history bitch slapped as bad as these bad boys who thought that they could drop drones on anybody they wanted. During the Obama administration, they dropped more bombs than in all previous U.S. wars put together. That was those jerks. Sitting out their drones and dropping them on whoever they thought was a terrorist. And now they've redefined terrorism. Hello? How long have y'all heard me screaming about the biggest war before the Ukrainian war going on Earth, which was on our southern border? I stopped counting at like 1 million people they found buried in mass graves at our southern border by the cartels, the 4 cartels that run Mexico. Now Trump is saying, you mess with me when I send in the military? Through this, he doesn't have to ask the Joint Chiefs of Staff to use to defy Posse Comitatus Act. He just did it. Not only that, he had all the states join in with him. He's empowered every single state and law enforcement officer to go to the border and shoot people who cross it, because it is a federal effing crime. And so now he has, they didn't give him the money from the House to build the wall for $4 billion. They should have done that. That would have been a deal. Also, remember, this is the most beautiful part of all. I don't think anybody gets this. OECD, that's the new name for foreign aid. He just blew it up like an atomic bomb. And that goes through all of the Crown agents getting money for foreign aid. So foreign aid has just been blown up. I thought it was just through the world.
More details on that.
The Office of Economic, the Office of Economic and Commercial Development or something like that, which is the ODA, which is just a new hidden name. That's why I can't say it to you, because they just hide the name all the time. They change it.
What kind of funds would be going to Crown agents?
$86 billion a year from just that one fund. It used to be, I don't know what it is now. They hide it so well. So he just destroyed the Crown agents' foreign aid line of funding. He just ended the money going straight into King, what the heck, Fat Finger's pocket.
Charles?
King Charles's pocket. He demanded how much from the world? 1 trillion of it was from us. Trump just said, you're not getting 1 penny, you little British biatch. I mean, this is the biggest bitch slaps I've ever seen in my life. And I have seen some good ones. But no, this is historic. This is historic. There's no way that we historians could write about this time, because there's too many factors you can't comprehend. Okay, and just overnight, Trump got $1 trillion, dropping off the Paris Climate Accord, which is one of these executive orders. He just threatened the trillions of dollars worth of tariffs on the whole world. And he's going to get at least half of what he was expecting. But in it, he's also going to get things like maybe Mexico, parts of Canada that vote to go with us, which we get the British out of them completely. We get the British completely out of our business, because what was the big one? There's something in here that basically does bitch slap the British. What is it? Well, first off, he clearly, by not inviting Starmer to the inauguration, said Five Eyes is over. He clearly said Five Eyes is over if you don't come and give me this man's head on a platter. He sent, 200 of his top agents to come over to fight against Trump during the election? That's election interference? No, our special relationship with the Anglo-American relationship does not cover election interference. We no longer have a political relationship with Britain until that is resolved. So that's in here too. It's all in here.
Wait a minute. This is exciting, because that means the British Pilgrim Society is not just on notice. That they exist for this special relationship, and the gravy train is over too. All of it.
The gravy train is war. Okay, we gave all of our munitions. Biden gave every munition, including, the bullets from his own personal gun, to Zelensky, and they put all men and women and children out on the front line, killed them all, told us nobody died there. What are they claiming? 80,000? They claim they've killed, 600,000 Russians, and they only lost, 20,000, 40,000 people. No, everyone who could hold a gun went on the front line there. This was human sacrifice, right? It's over. That's where the pilgrims' money comes from, is war. War is over. Look what happened. The hostages, which were being held by Hamas. Hamas is Israel. And so what did he do? He went and talked to Bibi. He said, look, you're the godchild of my children. Come on, man. Give me okay. You give me the hostages, and I'll give you the rest of Gaza. I mean, this is the kind of deals he's doing, okay? He just goes to the people, talks to them. They make a deal. What did he just do with the Supreme Court? He hung them out to dry. They ruled in favor of closing TikTok. It closed. He came back and said, screw you, Supreme Court. I'm keeping it going for 75 days. And then recently I heard him just say, it depends on what deal I get. And I'll extend it more if I want. In other words, he overruled the Supreme Court. He's overruled all these rules. Oh, You know what he did in this one? Because this is beautiful. As I just said, the idiot lady, we have done exposés on these idiots who are the head of the Pandemic and All Preparedness Act secretaries, who are the executive secretaries, who are like one of two people who talks to the president every day to tell them whether or not we're having a pandemic or we are in preparedness mode for whatever attack. In other words, weapons of mass destruction, because now that includes pharmacy. Okay? So those are the two people who talked to Obama. He didn't give a rat's rear about anybody else. He bombed everybody who they didn't even have to ask him. He was not in the ready room when they bombed all kinds of people. And now Biden couldn't take care of the Houthi. What was Obama's last deed before he walked away? Before he got on the plane, he ordered the bombing of the whole Houthi mercenaries, who are basically the terrorists who are now ruling the Persian Gulf, right?
Well, Britain, the United Kingdom, and I know we have English cats out there, and we love you guys. We're just a couple hundred years ahead of you in getting the hell out of the monarchy over here. At least we thought we did. Then it turns around that we didn't win the American Revolution, but there we go, we digress. But what is the United Kingdom going to do when they are sanctioned and their tariff is 40-50% because they're a war actor, an enemy?
Well, as I said, this is the coup d'etat on the deep state with SES. It's the coup d'etat on the Mexican cartels, which are not just the Mexican cartels. Those are the world leaders who allow their people, give them the money, provide them the transportation, dress them up and put them on Mexican soil and say, head to America, infiltrate. We want, the communist desire for America to be collapsed from the inside out. That's what's going on. If you didn't know that, I'm sorry, then you would so asleep you didn't know. There are over 44 million invaders in this country. Okay, I'm ready to say 22 of them may be working and doing a good job. Sorry, your babies don't count. DACA baby, you have to put them through naturalization process. Everyone, I don't care who you are, even if you're the ones they exonerate, you have to go through the naturalization process. We need to know who anyone who comes across our border is. It's called vetting you. That's why it takes so long for immigration to happen. We're vetting you. And guess what? Most of the people don't pass the vetting because people lie to get into this country. Why wouldn't they? They live in terrible places. Why? Because America messed you up. Remember, you used to be mad at us in all of your countries, Honduras, El Salvador, every country that is invading us now used to say we were the worst thing ever, but now they're all ready to be human sacrifice, pay the cartel. Be very careful about what you eat while you're on one of those migration, parades coming into the country, because that's when people die of fentanyl. Okay. These are the cartels. We're at war. So that's the issue. What's the other war we're at? I say it so many times it makes energy. It's the oil pipelines. It's the oil coming out of the Mediterranean basin. It's the oil in the Golan Heights. It's the oil being fought over. That's why Libya's in it. That's why Syria's in it. That's why Iran's in it. That's why Iraq's in it. Because why? They told us all the oil was going to run out. It didn't. Oil replenishes itself, so it just keeps on going. So we're not going to give up the old money rat lines. They're not going to give up their power. So what's Trump got to do? He's got to do economic deals with every one of them. Even the Zelensky has a certain point. How many billions does he need to steal from this war for he and his little prostitute wife, and he being a prostitute himself? I mean, they're just clear. They're just honest with who they are. Biden wants to try to tell us it wasn't about the oil. It wasn't about his son. And he pardons him for crimes he didn't supposedly do.
I thought it was gas.
It was gas, oil.
No, you said oil. Okay.
Well, natural gas, okay. Natural petroleum, liquid petroleum, and, it comes up in a few forms.
All right, we're going off these EOs. So we've got one that is going to rearrange the intelligence community, and it looks really good. And as you read it over, you saw a lot of suggestions that you have been making over the years, correct?
Yes.
And then we discussed the SES earlier, and we're looking at the EOs on citizenship, which is going to be more highly valued. Now, if you look around the world, we have a serious depopulation problem in the world. And on top of that, we have global, you know what, because, you know, YouTube will definitely throw me off if I go too deep there. But I'm not worried about depopulation in the United States, because if we get our act together and get our house looking good, we can invite the most talented people in the world to come to America and let it be merit based. And look, we're having a hard time ourselves, the young men, trying to find women who are traditional wife type women that want to stay and make families. Okay, great. The ones that don't want to, they just want to keep partying out there and having cats at the end of their lives, let them, because it's a free country. But why don't we allow and be generous in allowing women, especially from the Ukraine and Eastern Europe, that have lost their men, to be able to have priority to immigrate over to the United States, because we need to reestablish our families again.
Some of these have in them clauses that things are on hold for a time until they're reevaluated. And so he's demanded of almost all the federal agencies to these. So everyone in the federal agencies now, remember, there's like, I should look at how many cabinet positions there are. Probably not more than, you know, you see the table. It couldn't be more than 24 people. And they rule 56 agencies that have, you know, altogether some 200 departments. So all those people have to come back to one voice only, period, the president. And that's the way it's supposed to be. They were never supposed to exist. So he's put a freeze. So there's lots of things in here that just fly by. There's a freeze on hiring. There's a demand to freeze documents. There's, these are general things. New ways to hire. Last time they held him up, he was there, and 1,400 people he had appointed never got their security clearance. That's gone. There's a whole new way to do that. So these agencies could hold up anything because of paperwork. He couldn't get anything done. That's all been streamlined before he even took the office. And we got to see, he's going to have a peace in Palestine in a minute. He said it would have never happened. Correct. Ukraine would have never happened. Correct. Had they not impeached him, they wouldn't have had the cover for Biden and all the people that we've mentioned in infinite detail for you could get out of Ukrainian fraud and money laundering, George Soros included, the Bidens included, Pelosi included, all of them included, Mitt Romney. Same thing with China. And so those we got to see, that's what the other laptops are about. There's 4 Hunter laptops. 2 of them are about his dealings in China, which make what he did in Ukraine look like nothing. If any of this comes out, now that means Trump would have to destroy the agency, because why? He can't work with what's there. Well, these executive orders, if they're carried out, would destroy the agencies. Because in the first year, all the people associated with these crimes would either be indicted, or they'd have to quit, or they would be found to be negligent, or they would found to be not meritorious enough to stay in the job. Okay. Do we have enough honest people to go into Detroit, into D.C., the District of Crime? I don't know. These are all great ideas. Will they pan out? I don't know. But he seems to have forgotten. But I think we'll see this immediately. You have to defund the entire United Nations and all of its agencies. You could practically balance the U.S. budget with that. That and getting us out of the climate. And what was the other thing? He demanded that the U.S. Treasury give him $1 trillion, and he was going to get it. He might have been talking about the climate accord. I don't know. And then what was the other thing? What I just heard him say? He said, TikTok is $1 trillion deal. That may be what he's talking about. And what did he say? I want it for all Americans. So some Americans probably going to buy TikTok. So that just saved $1 trillion that the Fed has to worry about in the overall picture of economics, right? So there's like $3 trillion in a day. Okay, remember what he did with NATO? Mark my words, he's going to pull out of UN by not funding them. He's going to pull out of NATO, period. That could get him into a war where it was demanded of him, and the Congress and the Senate would say, we have this treaty. Who makes treaties? The president. Who ratifies them? The Congress. He can make a new treaty. Okay, he's out of, this is unbelievable. I didn't know this. Biden had set it up on his way out. So if you want to know the Biden crimes that he's trying to cover, they haven't happened yet. Here's what's happening. That office I told you about, the OECD, they just passed a global tax. Who cares that there's a carbon tax for every human being about how much carbon you use, which is completely fraudulent? No, Biden set it up so that all Americans, through taxes, have to donate to this fund. I didn't even know it existed. This is on top of foreign aid. This is foreign aid to 38 countries, and we are the biggest donors. And
Who's going to enforce this?
It's gone now, because all these are deals which are illegal, and he puts in here that it's done. I think it was $283 million as one payment. Oh, but it also gloriously, I read it carefully. I wish I could remember the exact words. Ukraine is foreign aid. It's just that it comes sometimes through different departments. It comes through the State Department, the Department of Defense. It comes through executive decisions of war. We're not at war. So all that money came through different departments that got laundered. That basically cleaned out all those departments. It got laundered through Ukraine, and it went back to U.S. politicians, right? No more. Trump made that impossible because that he considers that now part of this, and it's completely unfreeze. Completely unfreeze. No more money to Ukraine, folks. You can clap your hands if this is enforced. If it's not enforced, then there's other ones of them that tells them what happens to them if they don't enforce these. And they cross over. They cross over. So you have to know this and this one and this one, and you go, well, that means that they can't do this. That is correct. They can't do that. Why? Because he can now use the military. He can use Delta Force. He can use anybody he wants.
He can use lethal force.
Lethal force on the those are invaders. He said they're invaders. This is a national emergency. We are being invaded, and he's using the military. I went back and checked all the language. He is clearly ignoring posse comitatus in its more rigid definitions. But so what? Other presidents did too. So he can call fighter jets down on the cartels. He can use Black Hawk helicopters on our side of the border to blow up all of them tomorrow if he wishes, okay? And then he can use the military to build the wall and make it a military compound if he wishes. That's what all this says. Now, has he declared martial law? He doesn't have to. These executive orders do the same exact thing. So what I see here is he's not only got martial law for military, it's also now economic, it's political, it's intelligence community. He hasn't gone after the Brits so overtly, but he's canceled so many of their contracts that they'll collapse. What did he do to China? China wouldn't do the tariff deal with him. What happened? It collapsed. And I was the only one screaming this. China's economy has collapsed. And then when the the Three Rivers Dam collapsed and all that happened to industry, China was gone. They now know that those statistics they've been showing us are like 65% off. I've been telling you, China is in a deep depression because we're not buying the crap we usually buy from them. Trump doesn't mind that Americans have a bunch of crap. He'll work with China, but he gets Panama and they get our trade back. But they get tariffs so he looks good, so he can lower taxes. And, overnight now, all these people who serve tables, they don't have to pay a tax on their tips. It's like SSDI people paying tax on your SSDI. That's insane.
It's the art of the deal, global.
And it's all money, because why? Mammon listens to money. So this is all money. I am just laughing. There's none of these. If you put anything in the comments below that you want us to address, fine. But let me just tell you, I dare you to say something that isn't in the ones that are reinstated of his, the ones that were canceled by Biden, the 26 new ones or however many new ones there are, and then what he's going to do in the next week or two. Some of these things will require a letter, not just a signature. So he's actually directed in some of these that certain people have to write a letter to people at the UN to let them know that we're no longer part of the eight. Well, no kidding. And that lady she's not invited to the National Security Council. That horrible person and the person before her and Tedros are not invited to steal our sovereignty. So someone sent me, what do you think of this, Douglas? He says what you always say. He said independence and sovereignty in the same word and in the World Health Organization. I said, well, we gave up our sovereignty. And until he abnegates that act, I was wrong. Okay, somebody please write this down. I was wrong. I was wrong to say that you must rescind the Preparedness and All Pandemic and Preparedness Act, which has been ratified 6 times. No, you just diminished the power of that person, refused by the presidential order through the World Health Organization by ending it to listen to them, and slowly make the people so nervous at NIH, especially Fauci and his gang, and the CDC and Redfield, who already quit because he knew that they were going to try another avian flu pandemic, right? He said that, right? He said it's going to be 10 times worse. He quit on that note because he was supposed to act like a whistleblower. No one listened to him, and now here it is. And they've actually recommended you're supposed to be wearing masks and you're supposed to be getting checked for the bird flu. Well, remember, there's no such thing. There's no flu, and there's no such thing as a shot for the flu. That's complete nonsense. So here's what I can say. Because he did not go after Big Pharma, but what he said was anyone who was kicked out of the military for COVID-19 is reinstored with full back pay. In other words, he's saying you were correct. He didn't say a word about him being the father of warp speed, now did he? He had to do that for 4 years to keep that up. And then what's the other thing? There's something else that basically defangs the pharmaceutical companies in one of these. So he's defanged it by doing other things. And now you're going to see them jumping out, them making so many legal movements to say how they are innocent. And here's the Biden proof. Here's Joe Biden himself who signed that if I do this, the DOD takes over and I have I am completely impune of any wrongdoing. I'm a pharmaceutical dude. That's the reason pharmaceutical people didn't have to take the shot. Neither did anyone in D.C. Okay, folks? So it's out again. And so what I can say is I am now on the fence with Trump. He hasn't come out and blasted pharmaceutical World War III. But he did not, as I saw, I think there was one moment that he smiled. Did he smile, Betsy, during the inauguration? I did not see him smile. This is a war, folks.
The person who smiled the whole time, it was glued on her face, was that goofy Usha Vance and her husband. Did you see her? Yeah. The smile was plastered, and her eyes were blinking. So that tells me she never worn false eyelashes before. And whoever her new PR coach is says, now be pretty in pink and do your hair, because the last time we've seen her hair wasn't done, and smile and look adoring to your husband. Did you see that? Looking up at him with that adoration. Oh, my gosh. Okay, that's all for today. What?
Melania's hat?
Oh, Melania is always stunning. It looked like V for
Vendetta.
But it also, when she came out in her evening gown with the big Z, I went, hey, that's Zorro. And then when you look up Zorro, Zorro has that type of hat, and you can find the band. Okay, Melania, she always is making a fashion statement.